In 2020, like many others, my entire life was changed. Being born in 2009, I was lucky enough to experience a decade of life before things like social media changed the way that we experience the world. But that meant that, like everyone, when I was forced inside, I had to find ways to feel like I was still living my life. Especially as a child, I had to find ways to feel like I was still experiencing joy, like I was still making friends, like I was still being outside my comfort zone. All these absolute, all these absolute needs were replaced by social media. See, I may have felt like I was being connected when I was scrolling on my phone, like I was being social, like I was being the person who I wanted to be. But in reality, I was only ever seeing other people live out their lives, whether they be friends or even strangers. During quarantine, I averaged 12 hours a day on social media. That being from the start of my day to pretty much the moment I fell asleep. Of course, the fake stimulation that you get from social media could never hold a candle to a real world experience, but I was simply too scared to test my boundaries. Even though there was an anxious voice in my head telling me that I was simply wasting my life, this anxious voice was just drowned out by any new video, any new influencer, any new trend, anything at any time, so that I wouldn't have to think. The things I was avoiding were just simple concerns, I didn't have to think about my stress that I didn't have enough friends, maybe that I didn't talk to as many girls as I would have liked, maybe even the fact that I couldn't hold a conversation with members of my own family. All this time online and all this time inside had ruined my social development and taken away any courage I'd had to put myself out there. Life continued like this for years. You see, when you have access to instant stimulation, instant gratification, anything you want in any dull moment, suddenly every moment becomes one of these dull moments. I was being shown people skydiving, people starving, people fighting for their lives, and New Yorkers dancing in the subway. I mean, it was a never ending roller coaster of emotions that was accessible at any time. I mean, of course, even after quarantine ended, I was still averaging 8 hours on my phone. I mean, what else was there to see? As the years went on and quarantine ended, I still made friends and I still got through school, but life often felt like I was watching it from outside my body, not experiencing or being able to affect anything that was actually happening. Never truly seeing my family, my community, my friends, or anything like that. These moments were, in my mind, to be drowned out rather than appreciated. Now, the only time I ever realized that there might be a problem with this and that my phone addiction might be something that I needed to solve came as late as last year in September. My brother, Tom, someone who I idolized so much that I stole his haircut, suggested that me and him should go for a drive up to Canberra, just the two of us, to stay with some of his university friends. On the drive up the Hume, on the way, my brother told me that me sitting and scrolling through my phone in the passenger seat was too distracting. Naturally, or too distracting for his driving. Naturally, not wanting to stop, not wanting to sit with my thoughts, I instead had my phone, turned my body, and tried to turn the phone away from him so that it didn't distract and so that I could keep scrolling. But again, he complained that it was too distracting for him. So it was on this 6-hour drive, made 9 hours by his shoddy driving, that I decided I'd try something that I hadn't done in the 6 years since I'd gotten my phone. And that was go the entire trip without scrolling, without an AirPod, just sitting with my thoughts. With this, I also tried something that I don't think I've ever truly done up until that point, which was reflect on who I was and who I wanted to be and how my life was going at that point. I thought about little things, obvious things like Jack Wenn, I'm 16 years old. My friends are so-and-so. I like football, I like basketball, I don't like maths. These sorts of fundamental truths that felt to me like epiphanies because I'd never truly taken time to think about them. I still remember the guilt I felt on that drive. Did I not owe it to myself to fight harder against social media, to take back my life? How could I ever forgive myself for living my life on autopilot, ignoring the things that made my life truly unique? For the rest of the trip, I tried to approach things in a new way. We were staying in a share house, somewhere relatively small, but good enough for uni students, where I tried my best to test my boundaries. I would hang out in shared areas. I would take walks of the city that was foreign to me. I would make conversations with the strangers that I was staying with. For once in my life, post-social media, it felt like I was making choices that were reflecting and almost training who I actually wanted to be as a person, rather than drowning out any uncomfortable situation or reality with an AirPod and a video essay. You may have guessed at this point that this was actually my brother's intention, that the reason he told me to stay off my phone was because he hoped to kickstart what would be a changing experience for me. He had noticed the concerns I had that I was throwing my life away and shared them, and he empowered me to change the course of my life by taking me out of my comfort zone. It was this brotherly trip, actually, that made me want to quit social media at the time. Now, sticking to this commitment hasn't been easy. I've tried multiple things, like, say, putting my phone in grayscale to make it less appealing. I've put time limits on my phone that I've always ignored. And I've deleted, since that day in September, I've deleted and re-downloaded Instagram 19 times. Every time telling myself that, it was the last time. I would say, how can I be the person I want to be, someone that I would idolize, if I don't appreciate the things around me, if I don't see the world for what it is? The main challenge I found with quitting social media was finding ways not to be bored with the average 8 hours that I had back in my day. I tried reading. I bought a journal so that I could read and draw anytime I needed to. I found that for the first time, I began to feel more vitality in my life. I'd like to ask you all a question. Please don't answer. I'd like to ask you all a question, though. Who do you think that you are? Most philosophers that I can't be bothered reading will tell you that you are your experiences. You're the things that have happened to you. You are what you see and what you hear. I began to figure out how true this truly was. After cutting out social media, I began to rediscover what my voice actually sounded like. All those boring moments gave me opportunities to reflect on who I was, which in turn only made me more sure of myself. On top of that, little things felt different. The plain wheat bix I tasted in the morning, I could taste like never before. I noticed things, the bloke on the train arguing on the phone, the views on the tram to school, all the things that I deemed too boring to ever truly see suddenly became interesting to me, and I felt more connected to my life than I ever had before. Now, obviously I'm not perfect, but I can definitely say that after quitting social media, I'm more sure of myself, and I've truly grown to learn who I actually am, and on top of that, work to solve the problems in my life that I have, rather than just drowning them out. Of course, I don't have all the answers, and I'm only in the middle of this journey, and undoubtedly I'll face more setbacks, but reconnecting, or at least the feeling that you're reconnecting with your life, is incredibly rewarding. My advice to people trying to quit social media is that you have to fall in love with the things that you used to deem too far gone to ever appreciate, too minuscule or too boring. human beings for centuries have used our brains to do incredible things, you know, and a new idea, a new realization, a new epiphany about yourself is never going to come if you don't listen. It's a process for sure, but if you teach yourself how to reflect, how to ask questions about who you are and who you want to be, then it makes quitting something like social media much easier. The one thing I'd like you all to remember is that if you ignore the little things in life, and worse so, if you try and live your life through other people, then you're not living at all, and the big things will just pass you by. I'd like to finally leave you with a quote from 2000s pop star Natasha Bedingfield in her hit song, where she said, "Feel the rain on your skin because no one else can feel it for you." Thank you.